Hello from Spiritual Seeds for this 26th Sunday in Ordinary Time. I will read this parable, again from the Gospel of Matthew, and I will invite you to listen. It's a very, very crucial parable. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the chief priests and the elders of the people, "What is your opinion? A man had 2 sons. He went and said to the first, 'My boy, you go and work in the vineyard today.' He answered, 'I will not go.' But afterwards thought better of it and went. The man then went and said the same thing to the second, who answered, 'Certainly, sir,' but did not go. Which of the 2 did the Father's will?" "The first," they said. Jesus said to them, "I tell you solemnly, tax collectors and prostitutes are making their way into the kingdom of God before you. For John came to you, a pattern of true righteousness, but you did not believe him. And yet the tax collectors and prostitutes did. Even after seeing that, you refused to think better of it and believe in him." The Gospel of the Lord. I want to say something very simple about this parable, but very important for me, very important, deeply important. These 2 boys, at the end of the parable, these 2 children of the same father, at the end of the parable, one is in the vineyard, that is, one is tasting the vine, the sweetness, the joy. Remember, the wine, the vineyard in the Bible is the sign of communion, of joy. One is inside, the other is outside. That is, at the end of this parable, these two sons, they don't meet. These 2 sons, they don't meet. They are not in communion. It's true, in the text it says there are 2 male boys, but can be something different, can be a husband and a wife. One enters the will of God, the other doesn't, and the 2 don't meet. They are under the same roof, they are married, but they are not in the vineyard together. One is drinking from the joy of the Father, and the other not. The point of this parable is also the communion between these 2 boys. You know that Pope Francis is going to write, or rather sign, this letter, which he has already written. Next Saturday, on the 4th of October, the letter is called "We Are All Brothers." It's not a romantic title, it's the gospel. These 2 are brothers. But one enters the kingdom and the other doesn't. In the end, what the Father is looking is not who does, who doesn't. The Father wants these 2 to be together. The Father is not a teacher who has done the homework, who hasn't done the homework. The Father wants you and your husband, me and my sister, me and my community, my parish, to be together in the vineyard. That is what the Father is looking. He is looking to create communion. The first two brothers in the Bible, they separated. They killed the other. Hatred, anger, division. And that can happen between husband and wife. And the father intervenes with him and says to the children again, go back. You can re-enter communion in my vineyard, in my will. What are these two boys? What identifies one? What identifies the other? How can I, or you, your husband, you, your wife, how can you know that you don't fall into the trap of one or the other? The first says, I will not go. The first doesn't want to do the will of the Father, doesn't want to forgive a husband, doesn't want to be patient with the children, doesn't want to serve the other, doesn't want to love the enemy. I don't want to do the will of the Father. But what identifies this person is these two words. Afterwards, he changed. This is incredible. This is Christianity in its purity. Christianity is not people who start ready, go, in the vineyard. That's the second guy. Christianity is a bunch of people of rebels, independent, lazy, full of their own will. But Christianity has this. Christianity has these words, afterwards. God always has this word at heart, that is the time for Him to change our heart. Some of you, and forgive me, some of you don't have that word, afterwards. Your husband is like this, there is no comma. He will remain like this. But God is not like this. God has a big comma. My husband does not love me, he will never say sorry. God says, okay, comma, afterwards. By the grace of God, He changed. This is Christianity. God looks at your husband, looks at you, not statically. He sees the power of His word to create in us a change. And that is what is crucial in Christianity, is the afterwards He changed. The second, what identifies this second boy? Two words. In English, it doesn't come across. In the text in Greek, it's very clear. These two words, he says, ego, that is, I will serve. What does it mean? That this second person starts with his own will. I will love. I will be patient with the children. I will give money to the poor. I will go to confession. I will do it. I will enter the vineyard. I will become Christian. I will enter heaven. Sir, this man speaks to the Father like an officer. Sir, this man has lost the sight of the face of the Father and is starting the journey on his own strength. That is why he doesn't enter the vineyard. He has lost the sweetness of the voice of the Father. The will of God is not a textbook, is not a book of rules, is not a track and trace. The will of God is His voice, His love, His plan, His mission. And this second boy hasn't got that. He can hear, when he hears the voice of God, it's the voice of a boss, of a ruler, of an officer, not the voice of the Father. And that is why it doesn't enter the vineyard. The good news, you can change. And your husband can change as well. Christianity is the power of God to change us. In the vineyard, there are all of us that have experienced the mercy of God and the change that God does in us. In the vineyard, we will all be able to say, I was like this, comma, afterwards, God changed my heart. Have a good Sunday. I bless you from the bottom of my heart. See you in the vineyard, hopefully next Sunday.